This video is our technique breakdown for a squat, and this goes over any squat variation. These are the main points you're focusing on. This is always the starting point. We can tweak it a little bit from here based on your individual goals, preferences, sensations, symptoms, that kind of stuff. But this will kind of be across every squat pattern, no matter what bar you're using, what weight you're using, and things like that. Generally, it'll always be these main things. So the main points of performance for a squat are going to be maintain your foot contacts. So, like I said, maintain that foot tripod. You should feel heavy through your whole foot, a little bit of a bias towards your heel versus the other things. But you should maintain all 3 points heavy on the floor at all times. You should be more or less moving straight down and straight up, meaning if I look at my pelvis, I should see that dropping towards the floor and dropping back up. Third thing is going to be maintaining generally the same position of your spine throughout. Ideally, I want it to stay as visually the same as possible. It's okay if there's very small changes in it, but we're trying to maintain that position throughout the whole squat. Notice in those 3 points of performance, not a single one of them was how upright your chest is or how tall you are. That is because that is not a point of performance. I do not care how upright you are. As long as your feet, you maintain those foot contacts, heaviest in the heel, as long as you're sitting down and back up, and as long as your spine stays generally neutral and in the same position as you started in, you're doing a squat, okay? How bent over you have to be in a squat is fully dependent on the type of squat you're doing. So what implement you're using, where the bar is placed, where the weight's at, how heavy it is, will all dictate that, as well as your individual leg length versus torso length, as well as your individual mobility at each joint that's involved. So for me personally, my hips are here. I am 90% legs. There is not any way in hell I can stay perfectly upright in a squat without getting some pretty drastic setup positions and weight positions. It's physically in the mathematical sense, physics-wise, it is impossible for me to stay super upright in a squat on just flat ground. I physically can't because balance points and center of mass. So don't worry about how upright your chest is. I almost want you to think just maintain foot contact, sit down, stand up, okay? In order to sit down and stand up, one thing to think about is, for that to happen, my knees need to just move forward out of the way. I'm not trying to just push my knees forward as aggressively far as I can, but they do need to move forward. So what I'm not doing is I'm not pushing out with my knees, okay? That is not a cue you'll hear me say very often, is push your knees out, unless it's very warranted. More often than not, if you just maintain your foot contacts and keep those 3 points of contact at all times, my knees will just naturally do what they want to do. If I want my knees to be more out to give my hips a little bit more space, I just turn my toes out a little bit more and then keep the same foot contacts. Now I still let my knees go forward, and guess what? Now they're more out. That's all you need to worry about. I should never be trying to just drive my knees out as hard as possible, okay? So I'm going to show you a few different variations here to kind of give you the idea of how this kind of works across the different types. I'm just going to show you an air squat, goblet squat, front squat, back squat. So those are kind of our main variations. From there, there's little changes depending on the bar. We can set up boxes, all that kind of stuff. But we'll kind of show you how each of these varies and how they are all the same. I'm going to elevate my heels, and that is for me, because again, my leg length and stuff, it's hard for me to maintain pressure on my heels without falling over otherwise. So that is the way you need to think about the heel elevation stuff. The goal of the heel elevation is to make sure you can maintain those foot contacts and keep all 3 points really heavy and let everything else relax. If you feel like you're having to tension everything up in order to maintain your contacts, you're probably not set up in a great spot, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my heels up on here. We're doing air squat first. I'm gonna find those 3 points of contact, heel, big toe, little toe. I'm gonna try to get heavy in all those, so relax knees so I can feel my whole foot heavy. I'm gonna be slightly heavier in my heel. And all I'm gonna do from there is let gravity just take me down. I'm not forcing anything to happen. I'm just gonna make sure I'm keeping those 3 points of contact. For me, that means I do need to sit back a tiny bit and actually sit into my heels. Again, if I sit too far, I lose the front of my feet. That's too aggressive, right? If I push my knees too far forward, I'll lose my heels. Too aggressive. So my goal is to just find this nice balance point between all 3 points of those feet, relax into that a little bit, and I'm just going to let gravity just take me down. And then I'm going to push through the floor to come back up. Common issue with air squats and goblet squats is people creating more tension than you need. Relax. There's no weight on me right now. I shouldn't have to create a maximum amount of tension in my muscles to do an air squat. Your body knows how to squat, your joints know how to do it. Find the balance point in your feet. Everything up here can relax a little bit, and then just sit straight down, let everything move as it wants. straight back up. I'm letting my knees just go forward as I sit down to create some space for my hips to drop down. That's an air squat. If you need to stick your arms out a little bit for balance like I do, totally fine. I usually will have people reach forward a little bit to kind of create some space through their back. But should be more or less down, straight